Hey everyone, Cynics here, and this is going to be episode 7 of Design Lab. And the subject for this episode is going to be a four-leg mech. Now, some of you are probably groaning and don't really enjoy the industrial design, but I love it. And regardless, we're going to be mixing them up in the future. So, this episode is going to be about industrial design. Last episode was characters. Next episode is going to be creatures. And then the episode after that will be environments. So, it'll probably be those four broad subjects. And that's kind of going to be how it's going to keep going. So anyway, just writing some notes here to remind you, and this is also going to be a viewer participation episode. There, I can talk. And so I want to remind you guys that you're just going to be doing thumbnails and you're keeping them light and, silhouette-y. Just focus on the basic design elements. Don't go too much into rendering. It shouldn't take you more than a few minutes to do a thumbnail at most. Just kind of do it quickly. And I'm actually going to give you some tips right here because not everyone does that much industrial design stuff. I know it's kind of a specialized field that not a lot of people do. So I'm just going to go over some basic tips and tricks you guys can, use to help develop your thumbnails. So the first thing I want to talk about is this kind of the basic structure of your thumbnails, and that's going to kind of cover the angle that you look at them from. When you're presenting thumbnails, you want to basically have a general angle that you're looking at the object from. You don't want to do top-down views. You don't want to do profile views when you're just establishing your design. Later on, you can do those if you were going to make it into a 3D model or something. But just in terms of presenting ideas, it's generally best to do it from some kind of slightly skewed angle. So maybe even with some foreshortening and stuff like that. So I'm kind of going over some basic ideas in angles. One of them's kind of a low camera view. One of them's a high camera view. One of them's kind of has the object turned so you're seeing like one of the front legs right in the middle. And then the other one's kind of more directly from the side, but not like a pure profile view where you don't see the back legs. But more of like a slightly skewed profile view. So 3/4 views in general are what you're going to want to go with when you're doing thumbnails of like mechanical designs and things like that. So the main thing to think about when you're doing these thumbnails is probably the legs. That's kind of the key that's going to make this design a four-legged mech, obviously. So there's some basic structures of ways you can do the legs. And obviously the first one is like a human type leg, and generally the front legs are kind of the reverse of the back legs, just in the most basic designs. Obviously you can mix it up and do it all kinds of crazy ways. But the thing you want to think about when you're doing legs like this is kind of the weight and balance that they're on. So you can see that first one I did right below the top one. It kind of felt like it didn't have much weight on it. So the second one is more coiled up, and so that makes it feel like more weighty, and it just kind of feels better when you're doing industrial design to feel like it really has that metal, that strong weight on a leg. You never want it to feel like the leg is, completely extended and like there's nothing on it, because that just makes it feel kind of weak and sloppy and not that interesting. So I also kind of noted the two of the basic structures for how a mech leg could work. One is the inward fold, where the fold is kind of coming in under the main part of the leg. And that works for both two-legged and four-legged mechs. But the other one is the outward fold, where the weight is really being pushed off and out in front. The folds are kind of going up and, outward and, upward, and it's more of a flat design, more of a low profile design, and it only works when you're doing four-legged designs because obviously they'll be in the other direction, on the back side, and that kind of gives it a balance. So basically you have those like three structures of folds, and the size of those structures and things like that are really where you can get into all kinds of crazy designs. You can see like that kind of example on the far left. It had like kind of short, stubby. I'm going to call them by their kind of anatomical names, like a short, stubby thigh, then a short, stubby kind of lower leg. And then, we think about these mechs like we think about animals. So think about standing on your tippy toes and how animals kind of are structured, where they have that super long, not their calf, but their super long kind of foot, and that goes into the toes, which the toes are kind of like their feet. So, and with a mech, obviously, you don't even need toes. But anyway, you kind of get the idea. But you can also do interesting things like extending the limb out past the joint, or, doing the joint in a really unique way. Maybe it has like, multiple mechanisms that are actually driving a single joint. The other thing to think about is how big these legs actually are in relationship to your mech, to the body of this mech. So it can be like a little tiny body with super long legs, or it can be like a giant chunky fat body with short stubby little legs. It doesn't really matter. I recommend kind of playing with these different ideas in your head when you're doing thumbnails. Like if you do one in a certain direction, try taking it into the other direction when you do the next thumbnail, and that kind of helps generate ideas. So once again, I just want to go over the basic methods for submitting your art for these viewer participation videos. I would prefer if they're submitted in like a 1280 by 720 format, because that's what these video resolutions are. So that way I'll just be able to quickly put your artwork up on the screen and people will be able to see what you did. And once again, it would be helpful if you put your name somewhere on there so people could refer to you. And also with your designs, it would be helpful if you numbered them as well. Just these are all reference things. And in fact, this is good practice for future in life if you want to, work in the industry or work, with people on developing concepts. You're going to have to, present them in a way that makes it really easy for them to understand, what's going on and for them to talk about stuff. So it's helpful if you're not just submitting art in random resolutions, in different formats that aren't named or numbered. So get in the habit of putting your name on stuff and numbering designs and doing things like that just to make it easy to reference. So the primary place to submit your design will be facebook.com/cynicsdesign, or if you don't feel like using Facebook or have a Facebook, you could just submit your art in the comments below using IMGUR and including spaces such as the URL I've shown as an example. So I think that's everything. Have fun with it. Hopefully we get some interesting submissions. And in the next video, we'll go over those submissions and people will be able to talk about what you've created and vote on what their favorite is. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys again shortly.